Hello, it's Angela, and I hope you're well. Now, this is a special podcast episode, which is a coaching session between myself and my client, Lesley. Now, the challenge we've had is at the end of the session, we realised that the microphone was not working properly. So my voice during the session is distorted in places. Sadly, we can't recreate the session because obviously it was in the moment and very authentic. So I've decided to put out this podcast anyway, despite the issues with the sound. And I'm just asking you to overcome that and listen in anyway, because I'm sure you'll get lots of value. And it's just a fantastic listen. So try to ignore the distortions and focus on Lesley, and I'm sure you'll get something from it. I am delighted that you have found the Mindset Mentor Meets podcast. I'm Angela Cox, your host and indeed the Mindset Mentor, and I'll be interviewing executives and founders at the top of their game to find out what lies beneath. I want to know what makes people proud, how they define success, what holds them back, and indeed what drives them forward. This is authentic and natural conversation with the best in the business. So listen in, enjoy, and if you love what you hear, please do leave a review. And now, over to today's guest. Hello, lovely listener, and welcome to the Mindset Mentor Meets podcast. Now, today is a very special episode. It's another one of our fly on the wall coaching sessions where I put myself in the position of coaching a lovely client in a Zoom environment so that you, dear listener, get the pleasure of listening in to what it might be like if you did it. Now, I'm quite excited today because I have got with me one of my favourite clients. Her name is Lesley, and I've worked with her in the past, and we haven't worked together now for probably about 12 months. So it'll be lovely to have a catch up today. So Lesley, you're sitting there in your beautiful new bright and breezy house. How are you, my lovely?
I'm doing really well. It's lovely to be able to have this conversation with you and move some of my life forward a bit.
Oh, it's just so nice to see you in that space and looking so free and so gorgeous. Oh, it's just like you've landed and you're where you're meant to be.
Yeah, I'm still pinching myself daily that this is my home and this is where I am, but I put it out into the universe and it happened. And yeah, I count my blessings every morning that I wake up here in sunny Chichester.
Yes, chai adjacent, darling.
Oh yes, I am chai adjacent.
So not only is Lesley a lovely client of mine, but she's also become a friend because we have probably known each other now since 2016, the kind of big girls journey to lean days when I used to run that group. And just recently, Lesley has moved house, and it just happens to be in the same town as I live. And it's just amazing. So I came to see you last Saturday, didn't I? And we had cake and strawberry lemonade. It was wonderful.
It was very pleasant and took me away from the packing boxes, which there are still many. I wish there weren't, but I am working through them slowly. You'll
empty them at the time that's right. It's just marvellous. Now, we have worked together lots of times before, and you've been on the Me Treat and various things, and you've made tons of progress in that time in terms of your personal development journey. So when I put out that I wanted volunteers for this, I wasn't expecting you to come forward. But you have done. And so I'm quite curious as to what it is that you'd like to work on.
Well, it's a difficult one because I really feel like I'm in a good place. And the last year has been an interesting one. And in terms of personal growth has been huge. What I'm not very good at is the reflecting on it and the journaling and the acknowledgement of the feelings. And I think had I journaled over the last year, the little imposter voice that is sometimes still telling me you don't deserve this house, you don't deserve to be this free-spirited, possibly wouldn't rear its head as often as it does. And I guess what I'm looking for is how to be more mindful moving forward in terms of where I am, how I consider, I have really good days, lots of really good days. I occasionally have a day where, I shut the door and just think, thank you, I'm in my own space. I can now, decompress. But mostly I wake up just full of joy, and I need to reflect on that better. I'm conscious that I don't do enough to honour the feelings that I have.
Oh, that's a nice phrase, isn't it? Honour the feelings.
Yeah.
What would the feelings be that you don't feel you've been honouring?
Happiness is the big one. I feel blessed and very often joyful. And I do recognise that that's how I feel, and they are very strong feelings that I feel a lot, and I'm very grateful for. It's stopping the voice that says, but you shouldn't feel that way. You don't deserve to feel that way. And I do deserve to feel that way. And I want to work on ways that I can support how I'm feeling into a long-term way of being, whether that's through journaling. I meditate on how I'm feeling, and I'll often do work around breath work and those kind of things, just to kind of level myself. But it's quietening the voice on my shoulder, that little devil that goes, yeah, but.
Oh, don't you just love a yeah, but? Now, it's interesting this, because earlier at the beginning of the conversation, you used that phrase, I don't deserve to have the house. And then logically, that you can reframe that and say that you do deserve. But when we talk about the feeling that's underpinning that, it's a feeling of happiness that you want to be able to acknowledge and be present in and accept as being okay. And then what's happened as you've gone on and you've gone into the conversation, that undeserving has become about the happiness as opposed to the thing, the house. So at what point in your life did you learn, and I'm asking you to tune into your intuition here, that happiness isn't okay?
Oh, very young, very young. I would say 7 or 8.
7 or 8.
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
Because I can remember a situation near my birthday where I was super excited about something that then didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, well, I didn't deserve for it to happen.
Okay.
And that joy, that childhood joy, I think there were many situations with both of my parents where I want to say happiness was stolen, and that's not the right phrase. I can't think of what
that's
the
so
word.
Weird. That phrase was just in my head. We do this all the time, Lesley.
I know. But it was, looking back, love was conditional, not unconditional as a child. And I think also so was happiness.
Mm.
And it's taken me a long time to love unconditionally, and I do, whether people like it or not. If you're in my tribe, you're loved. But, and as you know, because you're in my tribe, I've learned you are loved. But the happiness part of it, that's been a harder one to work on, because I genuinely feel happier than I've felt in a long time. And it's a simple happiness. It is almost like childhood happiness. And it's almost like it's my time to have this. But it's been a long time coming. And therefore, that little voice goes, oh, yeah, but I've told you for many years, you're not supposed to have this. I'm now trying not to listen to the voice, because, yes, I am supposed to have it. And I want it. I want to enjoy this feeling. I want to enjoy.
Why not? Yeah.
You know.
I'm wondering whether, this is where my head is starting to take me, Just on that happiness is stolen, because as you started to explain that scenario, that was the first thought in my head. It was literally a sentence that came up, and then you said those words. And I just wonder whether it's not so much that happiness isn't okay. It could potentially be that if you are happy, there's a threat that it's going to be taken away from you, and you know what that feels like. It's painful. You know, you're joyous, you're excited, and then boom, it's taken, and you're suddenly left feeling empty as a little girl and, you know, undeserving, wondering what's happened. Because that little version of you knows what that feels like, potentially, if we use it as a hypothesis, if you start to feel far too much happiness in the here and now, there's a threat that that's going to be taken away. And the avoidance of that feeling could be what's going on in the here and now.
And I have always been into survival mode, protection mode. Yeah, and absolutely, I suspect it is far more around, will this go? Will I lose this?
Yes.
And I don't want to. I'm very comfortable with myself. I'm very comfortable with the person that I am. I am very happy to be my fabulous self. But
Pink-haired princess that you are.
yes, yeah. You know, I own how I look and how I feel, and have done for a long time. It's the emotional side of it that I'm yet to be fully confident about.
How do you feel about us going into that moment as a little girl? You don't have to describe what's happening. We can literally just go into that moment where you're excited and then suddenly that bubble is burst. If we go into that moment and do the neutralization work, you know, with the havening, we've done it before.
Yeah.
We can do that now and then actually do some work with that little version of you that's feeling the pain of the outcome of that. Whether that will allow you some freedom in the here and now to actually just start to enjoy the happiness without having to do that conscious reframe.
Yeah.
Would you be up for that?
Yeah.
You know, it's counting backwards and all of that. It's your favorite thing.
Yeah.
You love it. Or we could do alphabet if you prefer. What's your preference? Numbers?
No, numbers.
There we are. It's not often that the women say numbers, you know. Most women go, oh no, and they prefer the alphabet, but you are one in a million. So let's go numbers. So we haven't done this for a long time, so I need to jog your memory. What I'm going to ask you to do is to, in a moment, not yet, just let me explain it. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and put yourself back in that moment as a little girl, right into your shoes and become that version of you. Just for a moment to be able to acknowledge where you feel it in your body. Do you remember it's usually in the center line, head, throat, chest, tummy. So let's see if there's a reaction there in the body, because that's that fight or flight. And the minute you get that feeling, I want you to open your eyes again. And then we'll talk about the intensity of it, and then we'll work through the havening.
Okay.
Now, with havening, it's up to you. I've just noticed you're taking your glasses off, so you can do it on your face.
Well, that's why I took my glasses off.
So that's going with your two hands. I'll just explain it for the people listening. From your forehead, over your cheeks and down to your chin. Or you can do it from your shoulders, rub all the way down your arms and cross over your palms. I know with your shoulder, I think you often prefer the face one, don't you? So whichever is good for you. I'm going to do arms, and I'll do it with you just because I've got makeup on my face. So blend up all over the place. Okay, so I want you to just take a nice breath and just get the body nice and calm. And then just take yourself back to that little you. Connect with that feeling, and then open your eyes when you've got it.
Yeah.
How did you feel it?
Here, right in my chest, lower chest, bottom of my throat. like a bun, like a
Restriction.
yes, yeah,
An intensity level, it looks quite high.
yeah. It's probably sitting at a 7 or an 8.
Okay. It's almost like preventing you taking a breath there in terms
Yeah,
of a deep one,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's do the havening then. So you go to your face and you're just going to do the havening touch. And while you do that, I'd love you to count backwards from 100 in threes out loud, please.
100, 97, 94, 91, 88, 85, 82, 79, 76, 73, 70, 67, 64, 61, 58, 55, 52, 49, 46, 43, 40, 37, 34, 31, 28, 25, 22, 19, 16, 13, 10, 7, 4, 1.
Well done. Just very gently rubbing your palms together. And then while you do that, just with your face pointing at me, take your eyes to the left and then to the right and then to the left and then to the right, back to the center. Then just up into your eyebrows and down to the floor. And then up into your eyebrows, down to the floor. And then back to center again. Well done. Very calming for you, Havening. So lovely. We're just watching your whole body just go, oh.
It's like a virtual hug.
It is, isn't it? It
Yeah.
literally is a hug for the brain. That's what I like to call it. And all that serotonin. It's just gorgeous. So just take a short breath now. And I'd like you to put yourself back in that moment again and just notice what's changed.
There's less disappointment.
Okay, that's an interesting word, isn't it?
Yeah. And it doesn't hurt as much.
Where's there feeling in the chest?
Moved up. And it's a bit like cotton wool, sort of foggy, like mist.
Okay. Does that feel more comfortable than before?
Yeah. Yeah. I can still feel it in my throat. So I'm aware it's there, but it's moved up and it's lighter. But the biggest thing that I don't feel is the disappointment. That I'm a disappointment.
That you're a disappointment.
That I'm a disappointment.
Rather than being disappointed.
I'm a disappointment.
That's really
what's
fascinating.
come through.
So who's creating this situation where the happiness is stolen?
My mum.
Okay. And you're a disappointment to her.
Yes.
That's how that little version of you feels.
In that situation, very much, yes.
What did that little version of you need in that moment to feel better about that situation? Not whole life, just this situation, so that she doesn't feel like a disappointment.
To not be blamed. To not be blamed.
I wonder if if we can create a different version of the memory where somebody, and it doesn't need to be mum, where somebody in that moment where this is all going pear-shaped and you're starting to feel like a disappointment and like you're to blame, somebody comes in and changes that feeling for that little version of you.
Yeah.
You can decide who that is and you don't have to share. But it would be really nice if we could go in. Now, I know you're a tapper.
Yeah.
Nice. If we could go in and tap on that version of you in that moment where she's almost like encoding that feeling of being a disappointment. It'd be really lovely if we could go in and tap on her so that you can erase that feeling internally, and then we'll change the memory. And so somebody comes in, whoever that is for you, and says to you, you know, whatever they need to say to make that version of you feel better.
Yeah.
So to do the tapping on that little version of you, there's two things that you need to be able to do. And because you're a tapper, we can do this in this way. I want you to be able to tap on you in the chair through the main points. And at the same time that you're tapping on you, I want you to imagine that you're tapping on that little version of you in the memory. Okay. So you're going to go into the memory. You'll have your eyes closed. I'll tap you through the points. I'll talk you through how we're going to do that. But I want you to imagine that you're going in, first of all, in that moment where she's saying that she's a disappointment. I want you to tap.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Just get yourself nice and calm. And it should be easier to go into the moment now in terms of the reaction in the body. So I want you to go in and then we'll start the tapping. So I want you to just gently tap on the top of your head. Just get to know that version of you once again. And as you bring her into your consciousness, I want you to just start to tap on the top of her head as well. And then move to that inner corner of the eyebrow. In the side of the eye and her eye. Just nice and gently. And then under the eye. And then just on the top of the lip. And then on the chin. And then on the edge of the collarbone. We won't do under the arm. If you just tap the karate point on one of your hands and just notice that little version of you, just releasing some of that feeling. And then I'd like you to attempt to do a reprint on the memory. So what we want to be able to do is create a different feeling for that little version of you in that moment. So it's not that things aren't being taken away from her or, you know, it's all going to be party again. We're still going to have that disappointment happen. But we want her dealing of that to change by somebody coming in and assuring her and supporting her in that disappointment so that she doesn't become it. Just work that through and I'll stay quiet while you do. How does that feel?
Good.
You can see that lovely sense of joy in your face there, like relief.
Yeah.
What I'd like you to do with that image now is almost go back in And I want you to almost be playing that now as if it's on a little doll's house TV. Because you want this to become your new reality for that moment in time. So what I'd like you to do is be watching it over and over again. And as you watch it, you can speed it up and speed it up and just keep watching that new version and keep that smile coming. And I want you to surround it by light. And I have a feeling what colour the light's going to be, but if you're going to surround it by a gorgeous light, what colour will it be for you?
White.
Gorgeous.
White.
To have that white light all the way around that video playing over and over again. And as you watch it, I want you to imagine that that white light is coming in through the top of your head. And it's going to be flowing all the way through all of the cells and all of the fibers in your head, down into your neck. It's flowing down into your shoulders and it's bringing with it warmth and connection and the most beautiful feelings of being enough, being deserving, and being just perfect as you are. I want you to imagine it flowing down over your chest, starting to move down your spine, down your arms, and all the way down into your core. Let it fill you up with that sense of being enough, sense of deserving, and that knowing in your knower that happiness is okay. And other people might have the ability to take away happiness, but only if you let them. And you can hang on to it because it's yours to hang on to. Feel that white light come all the way down through your thighs, down into your knees, down through your lower legs and into your ankles. And then I want you to feel it go out through the soles of your feet, and it's going to ground you like those tree roots. It's going to go out into all different directions into the earth and ground you in that feeling of deserving happiness. Ground you in that feeling of being enough. And as you feel that grounding, I want you to just bring your hand onto your heart and join it with the other one. And I want you to imagine drawing that white light all the way back up now through your body and into your heart. And from that heart, beautiful big heart, I want you to send that white light out. Send it out to every single person who's ever felt like they are a disappointment. And let it touch all of those people who need to feel this feeling of being good enough. You need to feel that it's okay and it's safe to be happy. And it's okay to deserve. And as you're touching all of these people, I want you to imagine that white light is bounding back to you in every single interaction that you have moving forward. In every single moment, knowing it's yours and you can keep it. In the days where it's not as strong as the other days, that's okay. But it's always going to be there the next day for you to have again. And just settle now. Have one final watch of that little video on the Doll's House TV. Notice that little version of you feeling happier, knowing that she's not to blame. knowing that she's not a disappointment. I want you to just draw that new reality in towards your heart. And imagine you can just let it settle there now. There to anchor to as you move forward. That knowing that it's okay and it's safe for you to be happy. And then whenever you're ready, just take a nice breath. And then come back.
Yeah, that was strong.
Oh, well done. Such gorgeous facial expressions during that.
Yeah. I pulled in the good people from my childhood that I'd forgotten, that did love me, that weren't disappointed with me, and they surrounded me with love, and I needed to remember that.
That's really beautiful. And you could see it on your face. You could see that expression of love. You could see it.
Yeah. I was much loved. I was much loved.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that you weren't, to be fair, knowing you as well as I do now.
I just needed to remember it.
Yeah. God, you're making me emotional now. See? This is the professional coach has gone out the window.
Yeah, well, as you tend to make me cry, I didn't put makeup on this time. They are normally happy tears. They are normally happy tears.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. And it does, there's a lightness to it, which is running in parallel with the lightness that I've been feeling anyway, that I was feeling guilty about. And I don't, not guilty. Yeah, no, guilty. And I don't feel guilty anymore.
What if it's okay to be happy?
Yeah, it is. And it's one of the things that I try and say to other people is it is okay to be happy and to enjoy the simple things, simple joys. I've got dragonflies that keep flying into my house at the moment. They're clearly a sign. And I watch them. And, it could be as simple as a sign that I need to sit still and watch the dragonfly. Who knows? But it gives me joy. It gives me joy to watch it. And I'm not going to break myself anymore for finding joy in things like that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. And at the beginning of this conversation, you were sort of saying what you should have done. So I should have journaled and I should have been able to then use that to be able to understand the feelings that I've got now. And journaling is a useful tool, and it's something that I do. I might do it for 3 or 4 weeks and then I don't do it. And then I do it a bit more. And I do find it useful. I think it depends what it is that you're doing with the journal. So you're highly intuitive, Lesley, and you understand the feelings that come up in your body. You might ignore them sometimes, but you do understand them. And I just wonder whether journaling is something that you've seen out there that, is a should do, as opposed to something that you actually want to do. Because if it is what you want to do, that's great, but we've got to get the reason why you want to do it strong enough to actually make you sit down and put the pen to paper.
I think it's more of a should do.
Aye.
I think it's more of a should do. I guess people I respect for the journeys that they've travelled on often journal. And so I guess that I see my soul journey developing the way it is. And I kind of thought maybe I should be. What I find is it doesn't feel natural. You know, I can get that beautiful bound notebook and I'll have a beautiful pen and I'll be sitting comfortably and I just look at it and think, go make myself a cup of tea. You know, I know I'm shocking.
No, you're not.
It doesn't feel intuitive. And
I can imagine it doesn't for you.
no, and maybe what I needed to actually recognise is to give myself permission that I don't actually have to do it.
This is one of the challenges, I think, with what's out there at the moment in the ether in terms of all of the things that we should be doing. And you're right, there are people out there who use different mechanisms and you see their success with that mechanism and you think, oh God, maybe I need to do that. As I've got to know you so well over the years, if there's one thing that sticks out for me in terms of how you express yourself and be mindful, because you used that word earlier, it's through your creativity.
Yeah.
Which is usually about using your hands to create something, whether that's baking or whether that's crafting or whether that's being out in the garden. And that mindfulness that you're searching for around being present in that moment and exploring how you feel could come for you through that way of working, as opposed to something that might work for somebody else who's perhaps a bit more logical in their thinking.
Yeah, because I'm not a logical thinker. I'm not.
No, not it.
With the best will in the world, I try to be, but I'm not.
Oh, and that's what makes you wonderful.
But the times that my mind quietens, the only other place is if I'm by the sea.
Okay. And you are now, aren't you?
I am now, which is one of the reasons I moved down here. You know, if I go early to the beach and I sit there and there's no one else around, I can sit for an hour and a half and just not move and just watch and completely decompress. I describe it as food for the soul. That's where I go and I nourish my soul by the sea. But I also get that, as you say, from digging in my garden, which, as you have seen, is foot-high grass at the moment and not a lot else.
It's so not a foot high.
It's not far off a foot high now, I tell you. It's been growing like mad this week. And my garden's got COVID. This is not helpful. But, you know, I can see how I want my garden to be. I am creating a home. There are snippets of me in this house now. You know, I look at my bookcase with my knickknacks on, and I've got a tray inside the door, which my son walked in on Sunday and went, oh, well, that's you on a tray. Yeah, because it's got wine glasses and my sage stick and flowers and candles and, you know, just me stuff. But I am beginning to very much feel my presence in this house. But what I'm loving about this house is it's very white, and I'm not normally a white person, but it is allowing me to be. And as I am making the house my home, I feel very settled here. It fills me with joy. It fills me with happiness. It is that I want to pinch myself because I just feel so good. And yes, maybe that is my way of expressing myself, rather than sitting down with a pen and paper and a pretty notebook that I'm looking at it going,
don't know what to write in it.
Write in it. You know, if I could press flowers in it, or you know, that my head goes to, you know, or I doodle in it, or it's self-expression. And I think I've given myself permission to recognize how I express myself differently, that it doesn't need to be in the written word. Because also I for those who haven't met me, I talk a lot.
Oh.
I know, shocking, revelation. But that's how I express verbally. I'm not as good in the written word.
Maybe then. I had another client like this. She used to record voice notes for nobody, but she'd sit and she'd record a voice note about how she was feeling. And then she would never listen to them again. But it was just that kind of recording of what was on her mind. You could do that at the beach, just talking to the sea.
Yeah.
Obviously with no one around, because, you know.
I look crazy enough as it is.
A posse listening to you.
Yeah, you can just see it now, can't you? I think I'm
Stories with Lesley.
No, and actually maybe voice notes is another way, because I feel more comfortable when I have expressed how I feel.
Yeah.
You know, whether I'm angry about something and I go whoosh, because once I've done the whoosh bit, it's over and I hug it out. Or, you know, that I am joyful, you know, and seeing people and hugging them until they can't breathe, and it's the tactile, it's the physical connection, and that's what I get with my home and my garden and baking for half the street. I've got new neighbours that I've got to impress with my cookies.
But it's finding your way, isn't it? So earlier you said, you know, you want to be able to move from thinking about happiness to being, and almost like embodying that feeling. And journaling could be the mechanism for some. Doesn't intuitively feel like the mechanism for you. But as long as you've got an outlet that works for you, that allows you to acknowledge the feelings, honor the feelings, using your term from earlier, you can then move through them and move on.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be thinking about any question, you know, if we were going to write in the top of a journal, or you're going to sit on the beach and think about, the question at the moment, based on what we did earlier, is what would be the worst case scenario in terms of losing this feeling of happiness? That's probably really poorly worded in the moment. But what I always say to people when they feel that there's a threat, or there's, you know, they might lose something, which is a really common feeling, it's to force yourself to consciously go there.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to consciously go there once we've done that clearance work like we've done today. But to actually go there and say, well, what if I did lose this house? What would I do then?
I'd do something else.
As you've done your whole life.
Yes.
You know, whenever you've met adversity, just like most of us do, we meet adversity. It's crap in that moment, isn't it? For weeks, months, whatever. But, you know, a year later, it's past. 2 years later, it's past.
Mm-hmm.
And the resilience has got us through and we're happy again. Then we have moments where we're not happy because something horrible happens, and we find our way back through it again. So the worst case.
The worst case is I draw on the strength that I now know I have, and I find a solution and I move forward. Because, there have been too many times where I have been broken, but reflecting back, they've taught me resilience, compassion, strength, and love. And actually, you can't ask for greater gifts than those.
Such a gorgeous, gorgeous thing. And having that anchor point, right, well, if the worst did happen and I lost this house, I might be unhappy for a while I build it up again. But I know I can. I've got that belief in myself. So I have my anchor point of that beautiful memory that you've reprinted, and that happiness is okay. And an anchor point of, even if I do lose it, I'll get it back again.
Yeah. And actually, it is, in real terms, it is just a house. It would be if I lost my home. If I lost my home, I would recreate a new one.
Oh, she would.
Yeah. This is bricks and mortar. It's my bricks and mortar, and it is now my safe space. But I can make my own safe space wherever I am.
She can. Yeah. It's like, you know, you've just done that, haven't you? You've moved through. If I'd have said to you 2 years ago, we're going to pull you out of that house, you'd be like, this is my home.
Yes, that was, well, it was known as the retreat, that we named the house the retreat because that's what it was for me at the time. And when I moved in, I said I would leave it in a box. I feel quite similarly about this one, having packed and unpacked. But it was, something drew me to this house. Well, you know, I bought it without actually seeing it because it hadn't been built. but I just knew I needed to be here. And I feel that very strongly. There is a reason that I am here now. And it's not clear yet, but the universe will show me when I'm ready to see it.
It will. It will. That anchor into the worst case scenario and that strength that you have is so key, because without us doing that conscious thought around it, it almost sits there like a little threat in the brain, constantly nagging. Without the thought, it is just a nag. Once you've done the thought, you rationalize it and go, I'm all right now.
Yeah. And I have got better at telling the voice on my shoulder a firm no. And that, well, I mean, we worked on that a lot in the early days, and that has stayed with me. And, you know, it is a lot easier to quieten the voice quickly. I was surprised at how I'd heard the voice here, because I hadn't expected to. I think it was the blindsiding of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, acknowledging that the last year's been tough at times. So I feel like I've drawn.
Do you know what? I'm not surprised. That comment you just made about the voice coming up again. If you think, you know, yeah, I bang on about change curve all the time, don't I? But let's just establish where you are in the change curve. So you're right at the beginning of a new one, having, you know, you've gone through one last year and now you're in the start of another one, moving into this new home.
Yes.
And at the top of the change curve, it's absolute uncertainty. And when we're in absolute uncertainty, that's when our resolve is the lowest. So the inner critic is right there, and our own self-doubt is right there. And the two of them switch up the volume because they love it when you're uncertain, because they get their airtime.
Yeah, very much so.
It's just normal.
Yeah. Almost in my head, I hadn't thought past moving in here.
Okay.
And then I moved in, and so it was like, oh, I'm here. Okay, now everything else has to start.
Yeah.
And so you're right, it's that new change curve, and seeing where it takes me on this journey that I'm on, that seems to be doing me all right at the moment.
It's sparkly, that's what it is.
Oh yes, pink and sparkly.
Oh, I'm so happy for you, honestly. And on a personal level, I'm so happy for you. I'm really happy that we've been able to get to that memory as well, because we've never done that memory before. It's not come up before. But it's so linked to what's going on for you now that you'll get the freedom from that. And then if you focus on being Lesley rather than being Judith or being Bob or, you know, being whatever else anybody else does, then you'll find your way of honouring those feelings. I mean, you've got a meditation room, for goodness sake. Get in there. Look at your treats.
Working on it.
You'll be well away. I'm going to come around myself. You know how rubbish I am at meditation.
My friend Cez has just trained as a meditation coach and sent me one last night, which was divine. So I had a quick listen to that as well. So yeah, I'm going to just tap into all of these energies of these wonderful people that share with me. As I said earlier, I feel very blessed. The tribe I have around me have similar soul journeys.
Yes, it's just gorgeous. And, you know, keep that white light strong. You know, bring that white light in. Maybe for the next few days, just repeat that exercise. I'll be seeing you soon anyway. And then we're seeing each other on the Me Treat, because you come to me.
I'm so excited, having done the first one, to be able to come again and just move forward again, because a lot of what we talked about at the first Me Treat is now in place.
I know.
The things that I said I wanted, even though I thought I wanted them differently, my first mood board had By the Sea on it.
Just that how much you've grown in that time is on so many levels. It's incredible.
So it'll be really good to do this one. I'm really pleased to meet somebody that I chatted to from the Big Girls Journey to Lean, who I've yet to meet, who's also coming. So to meet in person someone that I've shared parts of the journey with, I mean, you know, and I'm really looking forward to the new group that you're setting up, because again, the old faces that are coming out, that these are all people that we've had connections with. It's almost like a piece of string, but it's a cosmic piece of string, and we are all interlinked in different ways. And I cherish that. I believe very strongly that there is such a connection with people. And some people walk a path with you for a long time, and some touch your life for a moment, but they have touched your life.
Yes.
And you need to honour that and respect it. And that's where that ball of string with all the bits touching, those people come into your lives for a reason. And the Me Tree, in many respects, the first one, I blossomed. That's where I saw the potential I had to become truly me. And that's how I feel I am now. And the people I met on the journey, you know, so many.
They're all friends, aren't they?
Yeah. And the things that we said we would do, we did.
Yeah. From one weekend, the friendships you formed are incredible.
Oh, the bonds are so tight. Yeah. Bonds are so tight. And an experience of spending quality time reflecting upon ourselves and giving ourselves the freedom to discover our true person.
Yes.
That's really what it was. And I still remember sitting in the room thinking, I'm not going down there. I'm terrified. I can't go down there. Angela's in that room, and she's so fabulous and she's so awesome. And I'm so terrified. And I just remember walking in and us all hugging, and it was like it was meant to be. But I nearly didn't actually leave the hotel room.
I'm so glad you did. I would have come and got you anyway.
Well, I know, to be fair. But yeah, it was amazing. And it began a journey where I allowed myself to be my true self.
Yes.
Yeah.
Authenticity from the heart.
Yeah.
You know, there's no mask on Lesley.
No. Nope. I've tried it. It doesn't work. And it's call it like I see it.
That's what we want though, isn't it? Speaking your truth, being who you are. Yeah. And we can be tempted into what other people do, because, you know, we're influenced by this stuff all of the time. But it's great to be influenced, but only by stuff that feeds your soul. So journal through the window and go and find your way of honouring those feelings. It's been an absolute joy to work with you again. Thank you very much for being so open and for letting us go deep. I said at the start, if this is about journaling, before we came on air, I said, this is about journaling, Lesley. It's going to be really transactional. She went, yeah. It won't be deep at all.
No.
Yeah, right.
It's how we work.
We roll. Right. Well, thank you, lovely listener, for tuning in. I hope you've really got something from the session, because whilst it's about Lesley, there are lots of takeaways in there for us all to use and learn from. So if you have enjoyed it, please do leave a review. Lesley, it's been an absolute joy as always. I hope you enjoy unpacking the rest of the boxes on your day off, and I will see you soon. But for now, we will leave it there, and have a good day, everyone. And so, just like that, we're at the end of the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed your time listening today, and a big thank you from me for taking the time. I'd really love it if you would be able to leave a review, because it really does help us to get noticed. And if you haven't already, why not subscribe, and then you never miss an episode. I wish you a lovely rest of the day, whatever it is that you're doing, and I hope that you stay safe and well.